Hey everyone, and welcome to part 14 of my no armor, no ranged weapon, no death, and fist only run of Demon Souls. I'm at the Altar of Storms, and it's time to fight the Storm King boss. Now with this fight, unfortunately, it can't be done with fists. It's impossible to actually damage the Storm King with any normal melee weapon at all. The mechanics of the fight require you to pick up a specific sword, and this specific sword, which I'm heading to now, is the only means by which you can damage the boss. So the sword I need is over here in the ground. It's called the Storm Ruler, and once you pick it up, it will just go into your inventory. You have to actually manually equip it. It won't equip itself. So now that I have the sword equipped, there's a couple of things I have to do. But basically, a big R2 heavy shot will send a blade of energy going out, and that energy goes all the way up into the sky and can hit the enemies in the sky. To get the main Storm King boss to come down, I need to kill a number of his storm beasts, these flying stingrays. The stingrays themselves will die with a one-shot from the Storm Ruler. And basically, I think it's like 5 or 6 of them, and then the Storm King will start flying down trying to kill you. Where I'm standing here is the very edge of where these mini storm beasts, these mini stingrays, fly. They can hit me from the air here, but they're not doing enough damage for me to be too concerned, so I just want to kill a few of them to get the Storm King down. But why I'm standing here is there's 2 different strategies basically to completing this fight. One is continue running off in the opposite direction to the way I'm looking. The Storm King's coming down now, I think. The opposite direction to the way I'm looking, to a little castle, or like a broken down building. And you can stand behind the walls of that building for protection from the beasts. However, you don't need to worry about protection from the beasts if you stand over in this area. You only have to worry about protection from the projectiles of the main boss. And you can avoid those very easily by hiding behind a rock here. I have another video on beating the Storm King, and in that video I stand behind the walls of the building. But in a no death run, I really didn't want to risk myself being hit from any of the little minion stingrays, so I wanted to make sure that I stayed up this end of the map to avoid having to think about them at all. Here comes the Storm King towards this position now. I just need to hide behind a rock to avoid the projectiles it shoots out, and then take shots at it. And all I have to do for this entire fight basically is stand in this area and wait for the Storm King to fly over, and then hit him a couple of times, or hit it a couple of times. Prior to this, I'd never done this particular strategy before. I'd seen this in other players' Demon Souls videos. When I played through my first playthrough, I actually used the strategy of standing up in the building for cover, which is up the other side of the map. So it was a little bit risky for me to try to do it this way on a no-death run for the very first time with 0 experience, and just from a memory of having seen people do this. A risky strategy, but I thought it was less risky than really exposing myself to all of the other floating storm beasts which are all around that building. So yeah, I preferred this, and it turns out that this is actually really easy. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is position a rock between you and the boss, and then as the boss flies over, get off a couple of hits. That's all. I'm very happy with this strategy. There's no risk at all, really. It's really good, really easy. And I would recommend to anyone doing this, regardless of what type of a Demon Souls run you're doing. was it for the Storm King, and now I needed to put the Storm Ruler away permanently because I would not be using that weapon ever again, in this playthrough at least. This here's the broken down structure I was talking about earlier in the video. You can come here and hide behind these walls and hit the Storm King from here and use the walls as cover from the mini Storm Beasts, but yeah, I didn't want to come here. Definitely much easier from the other end to beat this boss in my opinion. And because this is the final boss of World 4, it's an Archdemon, and as a result of having killed an Archdemon, I can now return to the Archstone of the Tower Knight, where that fog wall was blocking off the entryway to the fourth area of World 1. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you're here. Well, we've long been around. Well, do as you please.
Thou seekest the power, then touch the deep. Soul of the mind, key to life's ether.
Here I considered dumping all of my souls into Vitality, given the sheer number of close calls that I'd had to this point, but I wasn't really sure how much that would help, so I decided just to give myself a little bit of a spread between Endurance Strength, with most of it going into Vitality. In hindsight though, I would have pumped it all into Vitality. Enough with the close calls.
Art thou finished? May thy strength help the will be made. Thou then touch soul of the mind, key to life's ether. I shall await thy return, slayer of deep.
Well, we've long been around. Well, do as you please, but you may yet regret refusing.
Alright, so at this point I wasn't sure what world I wanted to do next. I knew I could go to the inner ward, which is the Tower Knight's Archstone, and I could open up the way through that fog wall now that I'd killed an Archdemon. I also considered going to the Tunnel City to farm for the fists, and also Prison of Hope as maybe my next stop. I really wasn't sure which way I wanted to go yet, and ultimately I thought, well, I'll just take a look at each of these archstones and see where they lead. I've already completed that one. And so it was Depraved Chasm or Prison of Hope. I didn't want to do Flame Lurker yet, so I didn't want to do the Tunnel City, but I went to the Tunnel City to farm just for a minute and a half to see if in one single farming run I might be really lucky and get the Iron Knuckles. And I thought while I'm doing this, I'll contemplate whether I'll do Prison of Hope or Depraved Chasm next. Once again though, like I've said in other parts, I was wasting my time here. The drop rate for the Iron Knuckles are so low, it's not even worth doing this. I didn't know it at the time. I was just hoping they would drop. But now that I know the drop rate of Iron Knuckles, now in hindsight that I know it is really, really ridiculously low, I wouldn't even bother with this at all. And I remember running back to the bonfire and still not being sure whether I wanted to do Prison of Hope or the Depraved Chasm. So since I hadn't made my mind up yet, I thought I'll just reset the Tunnel City and farm these guys for another shot at the Iron Knuckles. And once again, I still hadn't made up my mind where I wanted to go next, so I decided to farm some more. The debate I had in my mind was that the Prison of Hope had the Mind Flayers, and I had no idea how Mind Flayers and Fists would go together. Not good, is pretty much what I thought. However, the Depraved Chasm is an area that leads to swampy, watery type areas, and if you don't have the Sodden Ring, it's very difficult to fight in those areas. You can't roll in the water. There's no dodge rolling, and you move very slowly. And you can't get the Sodden Ring unless your world tendency is black, which means I can't get the Sodden Ring in this playthrough because I'm going for total pure white world tendency in all worlds. So in other words, I wouldn't be able to ever get the Sodden Ring. So I thought Prison of Hope's probably what I've got to do next, because otherwise I won't be leveled up enough to maybe cope with being super slow and unable to dodge enemies in most of the areas of the Depraved Chasm's world. That didn't make me feel very much comfortable about Prison of Hope, though. I still didn't know how I would fare against Mind Flayers, but worse than that, I remember in my very first playthrough of Demon Souls, I got hopelessly lost in the Prison of Hope. Between navigating all of the different stairwells and different prison floors and finding the different prison keys and knowing when to go back to where and what opens which cells, I just knew that Prison of Hope was going to be difficult for me as well. But not as difficult as the world that begins with Depraved Chasm, that's for sure. So I thought, alright, I better level up for Depraved Chasm by playing Prison of Hope. And with that decision in mind, I was done farming here. Alright, I knew I couldn't get through that. I was just testing the water. And here, I think I forgot to put on my Thief Ring. And as a result, the Mind Flayer spotted me from across the map. That didn't make me happy, so I thought, alright, I better put the Thief Ring back on. And I'll reset the area so that the Mind Flayer doesn't know I'm there. And that seems like a really good point to end this video. I'll continue on Prison of Hope in part 15. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you there.